All right, Adam Corey's 9th video is going to go over audio track list tie tracks together app. And I just watched this. It's the 9th one out of 9 videos dealing with playlists. And this is a little bit different than what I have been doing because every little extra video I've been doing basically controls the original audio player. This actually is an entity all its own, but I'm still building it on the same web page. The difference is I have its own action JavaScript. So I have a separate JavaScript called action2.javascript. And in my example.html web page, now that I've referred to where I got my information from, I'm going to close that up. This original playlist, every little H2 header underneath it has applied to running a song on this playlist up here. Now that we're on this 9th one, we're dealing with this down here at the bottom. This is its own entity. It's got its own separate JavaScript. It's got styles in the CSS that only apply to it. And I'm going to go over that. First, however, I noticed this particular piece right here where I can click the individual song and then it plays it up here in the player instead of waiting until the song gets to the end and then automatically moving to 2 and automatically moving to 3 and then automatically moving to 1 again. Down here you get to pick instantly what song that you want to play, and it will show you the name right here. And what I didn't do, let me hit pause, what I didn't do is I didn't make sure that when you clicked one of these songs that we would go from the play button to the pause button. Which is important because if a song is playing, you want to pause it, you want to come up here and you don't want to click the play button again. You don't want the play button to stay the play button if there's a song playing, because you want to see that it's indicating this is what you touch to pause what's playing. So in order for me to show that, let's go to the example.html. Now the player is at the top. Then we've got an H2 tag that does this second part. Then we've got another H2 tag that gave us this drop-down list so that we could change the speed of the song. Then we've got the third H2 tag that created this drop-down that actually stays open. So in my example.html, I want to go through these little things. There's my HTML, my head, my title, my meta char set, my link to the shortcut icon, which is this little speaker up here in the browser tab. This link links to the external style sheet called style.css. This links to the external JavaScript called action.js. This links to a new external JavaScript that I created for this down here. I'm not quite here yet. I'm still showing you what I needed to add to this one right here. But this is showing you that this is pointing to one JavaScript and this is pointing to another. There's the end of the head, there's the body. Here's the div with the ID of audio player, which is creating the audio player at the top. Here's the image that is the left speaker. Here's the div of the ID of the audio controls. It's this little rounded section that has 2 buttons and 2 inputs with the type of range, and then this div in the middle that has the times. Button ID play pause button right here. If I click it, it toggles from play to pause. Input ID seek slider. This is this slider so that I can quickly go to the middle of the song or the end of the song, or even go back closer to the beginning again. It just slides back and forth from the beginning to the end of the song or anywhere in between. This is the div ID of time box, which creates this box right here that has the time that you are currently listening in this MP3 and the time that it takes to end the MP3. You have the button, which is the ID of mute button, which is right here, and it toggles between the speaker to the muted speaker background image. Then we've got the ID here, the input ID of volume slider, and that's this slider, which slides from very quiet to nothing all the way up to the 100% of volume. Then there's the end of the div for the control section, And then you have the image with the ID of write, which indicates the right speaker. And then there's the end of the div for the whole audio player. Okay. Then you've got this H2 with the ID of playlist status. And this H2 is this. Playlist status means we're going to pop the name of the song up. And then you have this H2, the next H2, which is this, that has a select with the ID of speed list and all these options that let you change the speed. And then we have what I'm looking for now, this H2, which has another select with the ID of my list and the size equals 3. Size equals 3 lets it stay open, so we don't have to open and close it like we did the select above it for the speed. This stays open. If you wanted to increase the size to 10, you would have these 3 songs plus some blank space that would give you potential room for 7 extra songs that will fit in here nicely without needing a scroll bar. All right. This H2 and this particular select with the ID of my list is what I want to show you right now. Because when you click on one of these songs, you see that it turns this from the play button to the pause button now. But before I added a little piece of code, this play button just stayed the play button. So you clicked on it, it gave you the name, but this did not change to the pause button. And that's all that I want to show you before I move on to the new stuff that I learned today. So this select section with these 3 songs inside that are options, 3 options. This select has the ID of my list. So I want to go to my JavaScript, which is called action.javascript. I'm at the very top of it. I've scrolled all the way to the top. I want to go to search, find, and I want to type in the name of that, which is my list. Find next. And we're going to see everywhere that particular element, my list, with the ID of my list, is in the action.js JavaScript. So here my list is in this big long var statement, which means we've created a variable called all these variables plus this last one called my list. Alright, so let's see what the next one is. Click find next, and we stuck that in this set object references section, this note that we gave to ourselves. And so we have my list equals document.getElement by ID my list. Let's see where it is next. And then click next again. We also set it in this add event handling section. MyList.addEventListener. When the change event happens, we want to call change track function. Now I can close out of this. When we change the option, you have all these options in this select element. Every option that we click on, we are going to call the change track function. So now I want to go to the change track function. So now that this is highlighted, I can just scroll down until I see the blue background. Boom, there in line 88 we have function change track event. In the last video I had this statement, which is audio.source equals dir plus event.target.value plus ext. The value that we gave dir was the name of the folder that our MP3 or OGG files were in, which is audio. So in double quotes, we put audio and a /. So that gave us the beginning of our path. The event.target.value is the name of the MP3 file itself, and spelled the way it's spelled in the audio folder. So I had spelled it for you just as you see right here with a capital F and the capital U. And we also concatenated the .ext, which depending on what browser is looking at our code, it may be an MP3 file or it may be an OGG file. So this plus ext is finishing the path by giving us a .ogg, .ogg, or .mp3. So basically we are looking for the name of the file, and the audio player .source is going to be the name of that MP3 or OGG file. Alright, so we're grabbing the file that we want based on which one of these things that we click. Then we have playlist_status.enter.html, which is the name of this element way up here. We are setting that equal to event.target.value, which is again the name of the song, plus ext, which is the name of the extension, whether that be .mp3 or .ogg. So here you get to see the name and what file type. Okay, this piece of statement was not in here before, and this is the piece that I needed to change this background image of this button to the pause button, but we did actually have audio.play. So here in the change track event, you found the MP3 file that you needed to create as the source. You put that name up here and you played the file. But I forgot to change this button. So the name of this button is the variable. The ID is like play pause button, ID equals play pause button, but we set a new variable, var play button equals document.getElement by ID play pause button. So therefore we didn't have to type play pause button every time. We just used the variable that stood for that. So we use play button dot style dot background equals, so we're going to set this the background style of the button equal to this particular image, and it's URL parentheses images / pause.ping, no repeat. So this right here meant that when I click on one of these selections, I get the pause button. It's playing it right now, so if I want to pause it, I want to see a pause button to click. And if I click so yesterday, I see the pause button again because it's playing it and it's moving. And if I want to pause it, I look for a pause button, I click pause button. That's why that is important, because otherwise, and I don't know if I can do this because I know I was having some problems with where I put comments and how it was affecting stuff. I think when I was putting comments in my CSS or in my style tags, it was making everything screwy. But let me see if this doesn't cause too much of a problem and only stops that button from changing, just so I can show you the functionality that I didn't have. Okay. All right, this is the original I want down here. So if I click for you, it's playing for you, but I don't have my pause button. So if I want to pause it, I'm hitting the play button, it's doing nothing. I hit the pause button and now it's pausing. So I actually have to hit the play button twice. I hit groove with you, it's playing groove with you, but I don't see a pause button to pause it. So that was my flub up in my last video, that I didn't notice that imperfection and change it. But today I noticed it and I figured it out and I added this little snip. So now if I save this and run it again, I go down here and hit so yesterday, it plays and I automatically get the pause button so that it makes sense. I want to pause her, change it, it's playing, I want to pause him, play it, I want to pause him, so there. Done with that part. So no longer do I need to look at the action.js because I just showed you everything to fix this. Now I'm going to shrink this whole page because this next section that I'm going to do has absolutely nothing at all to do with the previous sections. This is completely a section all to itself, independent of everything else. All right. Let me first go to example.html. This is the H2 that I just went over. The last H2 that I created is right here. And inside that H2, we have a div with the ID equals trackbox. So this whole section right here is the trackbox. It's the div with the ID of trackbox. The JavaScript creates everything in here. It creates the button, it creates the name, and it creates this whole thing. It creates the fact that the even bars are going to be lighter than the odd bars so that you get a dark, a light, and a dark alternating rows. JavaScript's going to do all that. So let's go straight to the action2.js. And before I do that, let's go to the example.html and one more time just show you the extra link that I had to put in here to point to that external. This one pointed to the first external JavaScript. It's in a folder called JS and it's called action.js. This is the one I'm working on now. Script language equals JavaScript. Source equals, it's in a folder called JS. It's called action2.js and script. So this is the pointer to this. The first thing that he created was this little function that lets us just type an underscore every time we want to type get element by ID. We don't have to do that anymore. This is underscore and ID is in parentheses, and it just does this: return document dot get element by ID ID. And later in the code you'll see how he actually used this underscore to shorten his code. Alright, so this is just kind of like a little extra add-on. This really doesn't cause the functionality of this particular audio player. It's just a little add-on to prove how you can make long pieces of code that you have to type over and over again a lot shorter. Instead of typing this, now you just type this and you get the same thing. Not a bad idea. So let's get to the actual meat of what's going on with this audio player. Function audio app. If I click right to the right of this opening curly brace and I go down, you can see that this starts on line 6, and we are including spaces in between to make it easier to read, and it goes all the way to, I'm looking for the red closing curly brace, all the way to line 97. And outside of that function we have this window.add event listener, load in double quotes, and audio app, because if you recall, you can write a function that's like a set of instructions. It's like a recipe or a set of instructions. It doesn't execute, it doesn't run until something calls it. So if we didn't have this right here, you would have to have a button or something on this page that would actually call the function audio app. Well, because we're using window.add event listener load, when example.html loads, because it is linked with this linking script in the head, because it links to action2.javascript, when this page loads, it is going to call audio app, which is everything else in here that I'm going to go over right now. Everything all the way to here. Function audio app. The first thing we're going to do is var audio2 equals new audio. What that means is we're creating another object of the audio player. Up here we created this audio player, and it was var audio equals new audio. So this player has the ID of audio, and this set of elements and things down here is utilizing audio 2. So if I click this song, it's playing, and if I come up here and click this, I could have any of these songs playing, and this will be playing at the same time this is, because they're two separate audio things. They're two separate audio entities. One has the name audio, the other has the name audio 2. Alright, so var audio 2 equals new audio. Var audio underscore folder equals audio / and that's in double quotes. So that's the beginning of our path. When we start looking for whichever song we want, we have to look in the audio folder. This is the ending of the path. Var audio underscore ext for audio extension equals .mp3. So in this particular JavaScript, we're only going to look for MP3s. We're not going to go, okay, if it's Firefox, we're going to use .ogg file, and if it's Opera, we're going to use .ogg file, and if it's anything else, we're going to use a .mp3. This is basically only targeting MP3 in this JavaScript. Alright, then we have var audio underscore index equals 1, and that has to do with being able to create this as a number 1, and then number 2 and number 3, and then if you've got like 12 songs in here, it's going to automatically increment the number to the beginning of this audio name with the next subsequent number. It's just going to auto-generate by 1, because it's going to be involved in a loop. Okay, then we have var is underscore playing equals false, so that's a Boolean variable and it's currently set to false. We have var playing track, and I don't really know what that's doing and when, but it's a created variable. Maybe I'll see it later, but when I try to do this video before, I don't remember where that was. No biggie. Actually, I could highlight it, and I could look and see if playing track is anywhere. Oh, I guess it is. It is being used. Actually, it's being used quite a bit. So here we're creating the variable, and later in the code we're doing things with it. Here we have var trackbox equals underscore trackbox. Now this is where I told you we're saving typing, because he's using the underscore here, where instead of saying var trackbox equals get document by ID trackbox, we're just saying var trackbox equals underscore trackbox, and we're saving ourselves from having to type this. Where I lost my space. Okay, so there's that. Here he called this a JSON object, and I'm not familiar with JSON objects, but if you watch his 9th tutorial, he tells you where to look in the rest of his website for more information on JSON tutorials so that you'll understand it. But this is basically a collection of arrays. You have var tracks, so this is a collection of arrays, and here's one array separated by a comma, and here's the second array separated by a comma, and here's the third array, and there's no comma because it's the last one. So the first one, including the comma, is track1 colon for u comma for u. The first for u is the first element of this array, is basically what's going to be showing right here on the interface. The second element of this array is going to be the base name of the MP3 file that we're working with. It's not including the beginning part, and it's not including the extension. It's just the middle part of the name. It's not audio folder / and it's not .mp3. That would be the end. The audio / would be the beginning. For you .mp3 would be the entire thing, but this is just the middle chunk, the main part of the name. Then we've got a comma, and we've got another array here, track2, and the first element of that array is groove with you, which is what you see right here, and the second part is the MP3 name. Then we have the third array, which for this array track3, the first element is so yesterday, which you see right here, and the second part is the name of the MP3 that it's going to have to select in order to play it. So that's all that. Here's our for loop for var track in tracks. var tb equals document.createElementDiv. This is the magic in the JavaScript that's going to create this element right here that we didn't create with our HTML. All we created was an h2 tag and a div tag. We didn't create anything else. JavaScript is creating it all inside of there. So we're creating a document.createElementDiv. We're creating a div, and we're setting it to the variable tb. Then we're doing something else. var pb equals document.createElementButton. So we're going to create a button, and we're going to set that equal to the variable pb, and then we're going to do it a third time. var tn equals document.createElementDiv. So we're creating another div, and we're setting that to the variable called tn. tb means track bar, and if I can go up a little bit, you can actually see in later, a couple lines later, tb here. We're also going to give it a class name, but it's talking about the track bar itself. This first row is a track bar. It's got an image here that I can click. It's got a name that says number 1 dot for you. This second one is another track bar. It's got an image, it's got a number 2 and a different name, Groove With You. And then this third row is another track bar. It's got an image, it's got a number 3, a dot, and the name So Yesterday. So we actually have 3 track bars here created inside of the div with the ID of track box. So here we have div ID track box, and we have a track bar with a class name of track bar. We have a PB, which is the play button. It stands for this play button. There's a play button in each one of the track bars. And that's getting a class name called play button. And then our TN here is for track name, which is the number 1 dot for you, or the number 2 Groove With You, or the number 3 dot So Yesterday. So that is another thing. It's another div, and it's going to have the class name of track name. So with these 3 things that we created, 2 divs and a button with their respective variables that are referring to them, they are also getting CSS styles here. When we say tb.classname equals, pb.classname equals, and tn.classname equals. So now I'm going to jump to the style.css external sheet. We're going to look at the track bar, the play button, and the track name. And because we're dealing with class name, we are going to have dot track bar, dot play button, and dot track name. So let's go to the style CSS. Let's go down to the new stuff. All this is from old tutorials, previous tutorials. And pretty soon, right here, starts right here, because the my list, the ID my list, we already went over that. So here's the dot track bar, class track bar. That means this first row that's highlighted in a little bit of a gray. Background, $DDD, height 50 pixels, font family, Trebuchet MS, comma Arial, comma Helvetica, comma sans serif. Then we get class track bar, colon, nth child even. So this means every other alternating track bar that's of an even number is going to get this background color, $EEE. Now just to show you, if I were to turn that into red, so I mean you don't necessarily identify with $DDD versus $EEE, but I'm going to show you what background red is, because I know that's very obvious. Stop that from playing. So every even number track bar is going to have a red background color. But I think that's too loud, so I'm going to hit Control-Z a couple of times to get that EEE back. So that's just a way that when you create things like this, you can give a little bit of a visual aid by making every other row a slightly different color. It's easier on the eyes, especially if you have a lot of data to look at. Alright, the next style is class play button, and that gets all of this. That's for any of these buttons. Opacity 0.8, display block float left width 30 pixels, height 30 pixels, margin 14 pixels. So above the button you have 14 pixels. To the right of the button, it didn't really give a margin, it just gave it 0 pixels. To the bottom of the button, it really didn't give a margin either, 0 pixels. But to the left of the button, it wanted 14 pixels. So basically this ensured that the button will start on the page 14 pixels from the top and 14 pixels away from the left. And it didn't really care about the right hand side or the bottom. And it's got this background, URL, ... because the style.css file is inside a folder called style. So we have to ... meaning we're going to jump out of the style folder, / we're going to jump into the image folders, / we are going to grab a hold of the playsmall.ping image file. And then we have this other attribute that says no repeat. Alright, so that means that when we first load this page, down here where we're working, the default background image file will be the place small ping, which is inside the image folder, which we have to jump into. Border none, cursor pointer means if I take my cursor and hover it over that button, it's going to turn from an arrow the way it currently is to a finger. And then if I go away from it, it's an arrow, and if I hover over the next one, it's a finger again. And if I go away from it, it turns into an arrow again, and if I point over top of it again, it turns into a finger. So cursor pointer turns into a finger. And outline none. So that's all the styles that you get with the class of play button. And I think we're almost done. Almost, but not quite. We have class play button : hover. Opacity is 1. So when I hover over this button, not only does it turn into a finger because of the previous style, but if you look at just the triangle, it's kind of like a dark gray, but when I go over it, it becomes a darker black. And it does that to each one of that. So it's a very, very subtle difference. It's a very subtle hover change by using opacity and setting that opacity to 1. Okay, then we have, last but not least, we have class track name, and that's stylizing this part. So we've got float left color #000, which is black, and the margin 12 pixels, which indicates top, 0 pixels, which indicates right, 0 pixels, which indicates left, and 14 pixels. I did it again. 12, which indicates top, 0 right, because you're working in a clockwise manner, 0 bottom, and 14 left. And last, not even last either, font size of 20 pixels and font weight of bold. Now if I were to take that color from #000, which is black, and turn that to red and save it and refresh the page, and then run through some of this stuff that automatically runs, you see that I've changed my these elements that have the class of track name. I've changed the style right before your eyes. I don't want to keep that though, so I'm going to Control Z a couple of times and go on ahead back with the black so that it doesn't look so busy. And there you go with that. Alright, so I've shared all the new styles in the external style.css style. Close out of that. And I'm still working on the action2.js for this particular section. I went over these class names and their classes in the external CSS file. Now we have this TN, which means the track name .inner HTML. So now we want to fill this up. And what are we going to fill it up? Well, we're going to set it equal to the audio underscore index, which we initially set equal to 1. We're going to concatenate it with a plus symbol, and the string that has a dot and a space. So you have the number 1, you have a dot, and you have a space. Then you're going to concatenate with the plus sign tracks track 0. Tracks track 0 is that JSON object, which is basically a set of arrays. So if I go back up to that, here, for you would be element 0. The comma separates element 0 from element 1. So each time it's talking about tracks 0, it's talking about what you see in front of you. For you, or groove with you, or so yesterday. When it talks about tracks 1, it's talking about the next element in that array, which is the name of the MP3, minus what folder it's in, and minus the .mp3 extension. So it's dealing with this, or this, or this. And you have to spell it the same way it's spelled, or capitalize it the same way it's capitalized as you have it in your audio folder. So if I go to my audio folder, you see for you, I've done every first letter of each word has a capital, and everything in between is not capitalized. Whether it's an OGG or an MP3, that's how I spelled these. So you have to spell it the same, or the path won't be correct. All right, so we already did that. Let me go back where I was. How far down was I? Oh, I just read this one. And this one right here was what I said, tracks track 1. This is talking about that second element, which is the name of the MP3 file. So here, it's going to take the name of the MP3 file and it's going to set it to pb.id. PB, what did PB stand for again? Let's move up here. PB stood for play button. So now we have the play button ID set to the name of the song. Then we have the PB, the play button, .add event listener, the click event. So when you click on the play button and any of the play buttons, it's going to call the function called switch track. All right, so remember that. We are going to be going over the switch track function. I'll show you where. Down, 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 down. Right here, starting with line 64. So every time you click on one of these buttons, switch track will execute. All right. TB, again, what did TB stand for? It stood for track bar. So this row, TB.append child, PB. So here we've got the track bar. We are going to append the PB into that. And the PB is, again, what was the PB? Play button. So with PB.append child, TB.append child PB in parentheses, we got the bar. Now we need to append this button to it. And we do the same thing with the track name. TB, which is the bar, .append child. What are we going to append to the bar? We're going to append the play button and the track name. This TN stands for the track name div. Then we're going to take the track box, which, as you can remember, is something that we created in the example.html. It's in the h2 tag, div ID of track box. We're going to take the track box, .append child, TB. So the track box has to append the TB, which is the bar, and the TB, which is the bar, has to append the button and the name of the track. Then audio underscore index, which we initially created, set equal to the number 1. We have audio index plus plus, which means we are changing that from a 1 to a 2. This is the end of the loop. Then we're going to go right back up to the top of the loop. And we're going to do it all over again, but this time we're going to create the second track bar with the second play button and the second track name. It's going to go through the whole thing. It's going to go back up to the top of the loop. And it's going to create the third track bar with the third track bar button and the third track bar track name. And as many names as you stick in that array, it's going to keep looping until there are no more. All right, so that went over that loop, which ended there. Then we have audio.event listener, click function. And this is, I'm just going to read this because this is a bit of a mouthful. I'm just going to read this. Audio.addEventListener, parentheses, the click event, comma, function. And then in the curly braces, we have this underscore, which remember is get document by ID, playing track, dot style, dot background, equals, URL, images, play small, dot ping. And that's a mouthful, and I'm not even going to try to explain it. Then we've got playing track set equal to an empty string. Then we have is playing set to false. So that's all of that stuff. After that, we have function switch track, which I told you every time you click on one of these buttons, it's going to call the switch track function. So this actually, the entire name of this function is function switch track event. And that goes from this curly brace all the way to basically the end. Basically the end. Curly brace 96 and curly brace 97 finishes the whole function. And I already told you that this line 99 is calling that entire function when the example.html window loads. So this is the last little bit, and I'm just going to read it, if I can just read it. Function switch track event. And here's the opening curly brace. I'm going to go little section at a time. If is playing, and if playing track does not equal event.target.id, then is playing equals true. I'm going to read this section. Underscore, which again means get document by ID, playing track.style.background equals URL, images / play small.ping. Next section. Event.target.style.background equals URL, images / mute small.ping. Audio2.source equals audio folder plus event.target.id plus audio extension. Audio2.play. Else audio2.pause is playing is set equal to false. Event.target.style.background equals URL images / play small.ping. And this ending curly brace ends this else. This ending curly brace ends the first if is playing condition. Okay, so then else is playing equals true. Event.target.style.background equals URL images / mute small.ping. Yet another if. If playing track does not equal event.target.id, then audio2.source equals audio folder plus event.target.id plus audio extension. Audio play. And finally, playing track equals event.target.id. And there's those two ending curly braces. Now, when I first watched his video and typed this up manually, I made mistakes and couldn't figure out what they were. So when you go to his website and you go to his videos, if you scroll underneath the video itself, you click more, he has links that take you straight to his code. So if you mess up trying to type the code, you can copy and paste his code and then run it, paste it into your Notepad++ or whatever you're using as your code editor and run it. It works fine. And you may never figure out what you were typing wrong when you try to type it by yourself, but once you at least see how it runs right, that's really all that matters. Because if you try to type it and you keep making mistakes and it never runs, then you get frustrated and you just don't care anymore. So you have to have some working code to work with in the first place. Alright, so I went through all of the action2.javascript from top to bottom. I went through all of the new styles in the style.css. I went through the example.html and showed you the new linking script for the new action2.javascript in the head. And I showed you the new h2 tag with a new div with the ID of trackbox in there. So I went over all the code for this new section. And just to show you how it runs one more time, I will hit the refresh. This is all stuff from old code. And this is a more old code. This automatic play is old code. If I click this and let it play, change speed, it's going super fast now, that's old code. Pause that. Click groove with you, that's old code. That also, this changing speed also works to make it slow or fast. That's old. This is new. And you can't click the name, you have to click the icon. As soon as I click it, the song plays and the mute button shows. which I shouldn't have changed it to a mute button. I should have changed it to the pause button. Because it doesn't just mute it, it actually pauses it. Otherwise, if I were to sit here for 2 minutes and then click it again, it would be halfway over or more than halfway over. So I picked the wrong icon. I picked the mute icon to toggle back and forth. So I have to go into my code and change that to be the pause button. So if I go to my images, my little pause button is right here. It's not even called pause small, it's just called pause ping. So I want to change everywhere that I have mute small, I want to change to pause ping. So let me see if I can do that right now. In my JavaScript, my action 2 JavaScript, edit with Notepad++. What did I call that stuff again in my images? I'm going to put these two side by side. Alright, I'm in my action 2 at the very top. I'm going to hit search, find. What do I want to find? Mute small.ping. Okay, mute. Actually mute small.ping. And I want to replace it with pause.ping. pause.ping. I hit replace all. It says 2 occurrences were replaced. I save this, close out of that, go back to my example, refresh the page, go through these few snippets of code from previous tutorials. Now, there we go. And I click the next one. This automatically goes back to the play button option. I click the third one. This automatically goes to the play option. And actually, when I move from song to song, it always starts the song at the beginning. But if I just toggle between the play and the pause, it pauses this particular song, and when I resume, it resumes where it left off instead of starting at the beginning again. So that gives you better functionality. Alright, so that pretty much completes that whole tutorial of 9 different things. And